to my sewing room. We have such an exciting show for you today with so many beautiful things to share. The main theme is shadow applique, and you're going to find out how many different ways there are to do shadow applique. To start you off with seeing some of the beautiful things, shadow applique is beautiful done on the bottom of a pillowcase. Wouldn't that be a lovely gift to give to the new bride and groom? And sometimes I think we need to do things like that for ourselves too. I know I could use some beautiful pillowcases. This is another version of shadow applique done with silk pansies behind the organza cover and just stitching around them. I think that's a pretty little purse that'd be so suitable for an evening occasion. This is a magnificent belt. Oh, how beautiful. Shadow applique done with actually applique stitching on the top and then beautiful silk ribbon by hand, but some of you know you can do that just as well by machine as by hand. And of course the adorable little girl's pinafore, absolutely precious. Now the shadow applique here is done a little bit differently. This is done with the embroidery machine and then a few tricks stitching on top. But you know, those wonderful embroidery machines can be used for a lot of different things, not just for embroidery. And let me show you a wonderful, beautiful blouse. Ladies' clothes are no exception. In heirloom sewing, you can certainly make a wonderful garment for yourself. This one is Swiss batiste with all kinds of beautiful built-in stitches, double needle pin tucks, embroidery, just about everything you could think of is on this elegant blouse for a lady. I have as my very special guest today, Marlis Bennett. Marlis is a training consultant for Bernina of America, and she has some of the most exciting projects and techniques for you. Speaking of techniques, won't you come along with me over to the technique boards? There are 4 different methods of shadow applique or shadowing on this board. The first one is a method where you trace the hearts, as you've seen here, off onto the top fabric, and you put another color fabric underneath and simply zigzag around, and then after you're finished, you go in behind and clip away all of the excess fabric. The second method involves tracing off your design on your colored fabric, then bringing the colored fabric in behind, kind of put one of those temporary wash away glues, sort of glue it in behind there. Wait a minute, let me get it back up. And then, so you've cut it out on this one, and then go around, and this stitch is Madeira applique stitch with a beautiful rayon thread. Another way of shadowing is to use double needles. Now I'll pull these down here just in case any of you have never seen a double needle. Double needles and some embroidery floss, and you do the pin tucks and you cord it with the colored embroidery floss. That gives you a shadowed pin tuck. And then the last method right here is where you use the embroidery unit on your sewing machine or your embroidery machine, do your embroidery, and then come in from the top and do a little decorative stitching from the top. I told you I had a very special guest today here, Marlis Bennett from Bernina of America Corporation, and she has some exciting things to share with you. Marlis, welcome to the show.
Well, nice to be here. It's absolutely my pleasure. Shadow applique, it's been done and done and done, and there are some easy ways out there to do shadow applique, and I'm just here today to show you some of the easier ways to do them. And my favorite way is to do it and use a temporary spray adhesive. And that way you don't have to take any scissors to your voile or linen or whatever you're using as your top fabric. You would first trace your design from your paper using your colored fabric, and I like to keep them in one piece. And if you layer it, this is very thin fabric, it's not going to add a whole lot of bulk. And I normally wouldn't do this, of course, in a black pen, but I'd use my air-soluble marker, trace my design on it, cut it out, and then use a little spray adhesive. And it doesn't make any difference what brand you use, just make sure that it is a temporary spray adhesive and that it's made for fabrics. Spray it onto your pink cutouts, or in this case they're pink, and then attach them to the back of the voile. On the samples on the board, I did use a wing needle. This wing needle is a little wider down here, and it really pierces the fabric and spreads the thread apart. And now I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of this applique. It's just like you would do applique normally, but this way you're getting the heirloom shadow effect.
Now you're using just a regular needle.
I'm just using a regular needle today because we just don't have time to change needles all the time. I have picked the pin stitch on this machine, and of course I've mirror imaged it because it goes in the other direction. And we're just going to go around this first heart. And it's real important when you use the pin stitch that you don't going around curves, that you don't turn it when it's in the middle of a backward motion, that you turn it very gradually.
Are you using the open toe applique foot on that, Marlis?
I'm using the number 20 open toe applique foot. It gives me a good line of sight, and I can really see where I'm going.
Now you know is that a Madeira applique stitch? I can't really see from here.
It's the pin stitch.
The pin stitch
or blanket
Madeira.
stitch.
That's one of my very favorites to go around items with shadow applique. And look how pretty it is.
And since I have really starched my voile and my underlays, I really don't need to use a stabilizer. This machine will handle this beautifully, and you just go around until you've completed your whole design. There are a few other ways that I want to show you how to do your applique. You have to be careful when you do your corners to make sure that they come out looking just as nice as you possibly can. And then you can just sew to your heart's content. I found that the faster you go, the less you have a chance of misaligning your stitches. And I think we'll just stop here right now.
That is absolutely beautiful. I see how I find it fascinating that you didn't have to use any stabilizer on that.
Well, a good stiff spray starch will help you out anytime. And you just go around and do your heart. Do all three of the hearts. The center one, of course, you would go and do the stitching there. Also, to do twin needle applique, you would go ahead and insert your twin needles. You would use in this case I've used number 31 foot, the pin tuck foot. And when you do this, I don't think there's quite enough time to set this up right now, but you would lay a piece of thicker thread underneath and do your pin tucks over this so that you get the shadowed effect. And that's a very nice way to do shadow work also. And you can run those up and down little pinafores and the fronts of blouses. This new exciting technique that I want to show you is done using an embroidery machine. And this one right here was done using the Bennett Deco machine and the Hoop It All embroidery hoop. What you do is you lay your underlay fabric onto your sticky paper. You go ahead and you stitch your entire design except for the outline. Then you come in and you would trim away some of this underlay so that you have some of the sticky paper exposed to lay the voile over and so that it sticks. Then you will come in and you will do the outline stitch at the very last, and if you're doing heirloom sewing, you'll probably want to do it with a white thread. And then when you get finished with all of that, you'll take it out of the hoop and you'll trim away all this back fabric, and you have a very nice new way of doing shadow applique.
That was a really interesting demonstration. And next we have a wonderful home decorating project for you. Marlis, tell us about this beautiful pillow.
It's got the shadow applique hearts right here. I've taken some of the monogram letters off the 1630 and put them in the center of a heart. This is a great wedding gift. There's insertion lace here, and I've run ribbon through some of the beads here. This right here is machine embroidery off the Bennett Deco machine. I've done the scallops on the machine and then trimmed them and inserted that in and sandwiched that in between the two layers of the pillow, turned it inside out, and I've got my pillow all ready to go.
Well, go ahead and show us a little bit more closely now, because everybody will want to know how to make one of these.
Of course, you do your little square with your shadow applique. Do the embroidery in there, and this happens to be for my little niece. To place the letters, you have the template that comes with the machine, and you just mark your starting spot. I always like to make a long straight line to make sure I've got everything going straight up and down. Then the next part is your insertion lace, and I've taken entredot and lace, French lace, and then put them together. Because it's colored in here, I've had to face it with a pink lining. And I just sewed right here along. Then I made sure that both my seam allowances were 1/4 inch. Then I would go ahead and run the silk ribbon through the beading of the entredot. The next part, of course, would be to add these pieces onto the insertion lace. And what I usually do is I just go ahead, you need to be careful because this is on a bias here, that you will add these on, get all 4 corners on. When you've got all 4 of your corners on, what I do is I mark this. For my center, mark this, fold this in half, get a center line, mark it, stick it into my embroidery machine, and do the beautiful embroidery that is on, this comes on the machine right here. After I finish that, I've inserted piping in through the outside, the perimeter of this, using a 1/4 inch seam, and then I'm going to do the scallops. With the scallops, I just doubled up my batiste, used the same thread top and bottom, and I went ahead through the whole thing, folded it in half and went ahead and did this. Then you come in through and trim this. I like to use a fabric seam sealant on the edge before I do any trimming. To do cording, to do the gathering on this, I use my number 12 foot. This foot has a groove in here, and it also has a hole where I can run a piece of cord in, and then I do a narrow zigzag over this cord, and this way I can gather many yards, many layers, and it's not going to break on me. Then of course I would put this around the outside perimeter of the pillow. To do the finished backing, now I'm not going to sandwich that all in here because that would get confusing. I like to do it this way. I like to do a hem stitch on one finished edge of my backing. I would lay it on here like this, do the outside one first, put this one on here, sew all around the perimeter, and then I can just come in here and fold it out and I have a finished pillow.
Marla, do something for me. I know that you are a former French teacher. Would you pronounce entredot correctly for me?
It's pronounced entredot.
Thank you very much. And now then, we have a really, really magnificent doll dress for you. Just wait until you see this doll dress. I love it. This is one of the dresses, one of the versions of the dress in our series. This is white Swiss batiste and wonderful bright navy blue ribbons. Just a cute little military look. This has the ribbons with the tiny buttons at the end and the little machine embellished points at the end. In other words, a sewing machine did that little end part, not the ribbon. Then the peplum is so adorable with the little navy blue ribbon on it. Oh, I know you always enjoy seeing the sleeves, so let me turn around and show you those sleeves. Aren't they beautiful? I just love them. Anyway, the skirt is adorable too. It has the 3 strips of 1/4 inch ribbon stitched down on it, and this strip, the final one, actually holds up the hem so you don't have to hem the dress because it's all done all in one. Now then, how in the world do you make this dress? Well, of course, it's very easy to do, and by the way, there are 13 different sizes of this dress in this series. This is the ribbon we're going to use. Now, to make any doll dress, we take a square first and trace off the design. Then I draw the lines on the design where the ribbon will go, and then I have to get my ribbon pieces ready to cut. Okay. Now then, here this variation shows the ribbons have been stitched down 1, 2, 3, 4. You can stitch either just a straight stitch on each side, or you can use double needles like I'm going to show you in a minute. Then you stitch the buttons on each corner. This is the peplum. Can you see that there is a miter there on the end of the peplum? You miter the ribbon just like you miter lace and stitch it down. Now the skirt will have three rows of ribbon running around it. This row of ribbon right here will be the one that will catch the hem. So when I stitch this one down, I will have accomplished 2 things at one time. Now let me just show you a little trick I've learned. You can use a double needle. This one is a 4.0 double needle to use with 1/4-inch ribbon. You can use a double needle and stitch the ribbon down as long as you've got something to kind of guide by in the middle, and this foot is great for that. And I'm just going to use the double needles, and I can stitch both sides of that ribbon at one time, which makes it quite easy to do. And then adjust a little bit, and then here we go with the next stitching. Let me get it down so you can see. And this also is hemming my doll dress. All right, after that, after all of that has been stitched down, just go ahead and put all 3 rows on there, and then you will have finished one of the most beautiful military type doll dresses you've ever seen. And next, I have another really beautiful quilt square for you. The very last square on our quilt we'll share with you today. This one is a circle of puffing with lace and a cute little machine embroidery in the middle. It is very easy to do circular puffing, although some people think, well, I could never do that, but it's easy. All right, here's what the square looks like with the lace and the puffing and the lace. And for those of you that don't know what puffing is, it starts out as a strip, any width you want to make it, of just batiste in this case, or just plain fabric. Now then, here's what I did. I stitched using a gathering foot all the way around this side of the puffing and this side of the puffing, and then I pinned it to my circular pattern, sticking pins in on the outside only. Now it kind of sticks up, and you can't adjust the gathers on a gathering foot. So what did I do to get that fluffiness out of it? Well, this is called the principle of smush it. You take your hand and you go just like that, and you go just like that, and voila, it is just like magic. It smushes down perfectly. Now what am I going to do with this overlapping tail here? Well, I'm going to bring it on around, stick another pin in it, and I'm going to take my scissors, chop off what I do not need, and then I'm going to turn under and just overlay it just like that. Don't worry about joining those two. You're never going to see that they're not joined. And then I'm going to take laces and bring them over, pin the big side, as you can see as I've done here. Pin the big side of the lace, and then pull a little string and make the lace lay down flat, and shape lace on the inside, the outside and the inside. Now I thought I'd take just 1/2 second for those of you that have never seen a gathering foot in operation. And by the way, if you don't have a gathering foot, you can just run 2 rows of gathering. That'll be okay, just like you normally do. But a gathering foot, all you do is I've already run one side of gathering, as you can see, and you just put the gathering foot on, and then you stitch, and guess what? It gathers it for you, a beautiful gather. I'll hold it down here so it won't cover it up, the camera there. You just run it and it gathers it perfectly every time. You go a little bit more slowly on the second side to be sure that you don't get it all crumpled in and pushed up together. You know, that'd be easy to do when you're working on the second side. But see how easy it is to run the gathering foot and to make your beautiful puffing strip? Then here is my finished piece of puffing, where I have run it down one side and run it down the other side. All you do then to make it really the very prettiest is just simply to come along here like I'm doing my fingers now and pull it a little bit to the side. Sometimes you don't have to do that. But remember, when you shape it around in a circle like you're shaping lace, this side is going to stick up a little bit, and you can't pull the gathering thread, because let me tell you, what you see is what you get. You don't just slip it underneath there and pull it, because it is solid as a rock and it's not going anywhere. Remember, when you shape it around, you just take your hand and smush it a little bit, and there it is. Next, I have a beautiful, beautiful antique christening dress to share with you, and an antique technique to go along with it. I have really been looking forward to sharing this dress with you. This is one of the pieces from my collection that truly is museum quality. It's awfully hard at any price to find dresses like this. So I just want to take a few minutes just to enjoy it. This dress has the scoop neck, so it would be, probably circa 1880 or maybe a little earlier. It also has the short sleeves, which will mean that it's an earlier dress. Around 1900, they began to put long sleeves and high necks in the dress. This is one of the most exquisite features of the dress. It has ruffles, little tiny fabric ruffles about 1 inch wide the hem is folded back and the lace is added to the finished ruffle. Do you see the beautiful use of tucks, folded tucks? Now, a very interesting thing about this dress is that the tucks in this section I'm showing you now, the inside panel, are stitched by machine. Of course, that would have been a treadle machine, and they are straight stitched. Now then, as we get on down to the sides of the dress, these tucks, which are about the same size, I think they're all 1/4 inch tucks, part of them are anyway, are stitched by hand. And that's a very unusual trait to me, to have some of the tucks stitched by hand and some of the tucks stitched by machine. Now back over here, let's go down these panels of tucks. And by the way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tucks are in each one of these panels, sets of 6. Now this is absolutely beautiful. There are ruffles here, those tiny little 1 inch ruffles, that 1, 2, 3 little ruffles with flat lace added onto the bottom that are stitched at the bottom of this tucked panel. Another very unusual feature is the bottom panel, which has vertical tucks as opposed to the horizontal tucks, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 vertical tucks in this panel. You see how it goes all the way across with the lace and the insertion, and then it is simply hemmed with a plain hem. This lady was smart. She didn't do any more tucks than she had to do. She simply put a plain panel on there for the hem. Now the antique technique I want to share with you is how you do these ruffles that are finished. They're hemmed and a little bit of edging has been put on the side. They're very, very easy technique. First of all, you fold over a double fold, 1, 2, 1/4 inch fold, and then stitch straight on the top of the fold. Then take the finished folded ruffle and simply butt the lace up to it and zigzag it. So you have a finished hem with lace butted up to it and zigzagged, and here is how it looks after you hem it and then butt the laces up to it. Now won't you come along to my attic with me? As I was looking at the little wool challis coat that I have to share with you today, I thought, you know, antique clothes do not have to be really elaborate to be very, very beautiful. This little coat is made out of a cream wool challis, and the scallops or scallops, whichever way you pronounce them, are all the way around the collar. Now, it's a very simple coat. All of the embellishment is up here. Let me lift up this collar and show you the absolutely sweet honeycomb smocking on both sides of the front. And the little cuffs are very sweet and simple too, with handmade buttonhole stitch scallops around the cuffs. The back also has a really pretty smock section with the honeycomb smocking. And this little coat has been washed for years and years and even has some moth holes in it, but those moth holes don't bother me. I still think it is a beautiful little coat, and I thought you would enjoy it too. We have a really nice letter for Sewing from the Heart today. It is from Rosemary Starkey from Eau Gray, Michigan. Rosemary writes, "At our church, our mission church is in Costa Rica. Our minister and 3 others went to Costa Rica for 2 weeks. I didn't go, but once again used your pattern to make 18 dresses to send along with them, 3 in each of 6 sizes. One size 1 I fancied up a bit with lace, so if our pastor had an opportunity, she could use it for a baptism. Those little dresses for Costa Rica were reversible, and I put a pocket in each one. You know how much children love a pocket." Well, Rosemary, I absolutely appreciate your contribution to those children in Costa Rica, and I would be willing to bet that some of those children had never had a pretty new dress before. And Rosemary, as far as I'm concerned, you contributed just as much to that missionary trip as those who were able to go, because you see, it takes the talents of all of us to make a missionary trip work. Thank you for joining me in my sewing room today. I certainly would invite you to come back next time.